Hello and welcome to Take 6. I am streaming executive producer Thomas Mates, filling in for Julie Broughton, who has the day off today. We've got a very good show for you today, where I'll be speaking with Justin Wormuth again, News 6 anchor Justin Wormuth. He is going to present part 2 of his story about online gambling here in Florida, and Central Florida specifically. The only organization that is there to help people with gambling addiction here in the state is based out of Central Florida. Justin is going to be looking closely at that organization and the problems it is facing, as it is not currently receiving state funding and is sorely understaffed. That'll be coming up in just a few minutes. We're also going to be taking a look at tonight's Protecting Our Communities from News 6 anchor Eric Von Aken. Eric is speaking with a veterinarian who helps to make sure that police canines, law enforcement canines, are cared for and that they are ready to do their jobs to protect all of us here in Central Florida. But before we get to all of that, first things first, we have to talk about the weather. One thing I missed on my morning drive this morning was the fog. I know there was some fog overnight, but I didn't experience any on my drive. I hope it was nice and clear for all of you as well. The last couple of days when we've taken a look at Daytona Beach, it's still been socked in at this time of day, but not the case. Bright and sunshiny, maybe some lingering haze there that you can see on your screens, but certainly we can see the coast this time. We can see the boardwalk and the beach itself. For more on what we can expect out of the next couple of days, we are joined now by News 6 digital meteorologist David Nazario. David, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. I know your morning started a little bit earlier than mine. Were you seeing any of that fog out there on the road this morning, or was it clear for you as well?
No, it was definitely much clearer, that's for certain. Almost a night and day difference, no pun intended.
Well, fair enough. No pun intended, but certainly it was there. In any case, yes, a little bit of punniness. I've come to expect it from you. So anyways, David, so the fog's cleared out a little bit earlier today. Are we done with it, or are we going to see any more this week, or what's the trend now?
Yeah, so looking at our current visibility here, we do still have a bit of that patchy fog out there right up against Brevard County, and that's going to be kind of the rhythm we follow between tonight and Friday. We're mainly going to see a lot of that stuff stay along the coast, and it's not going to intrude too heavily upon Central Florida from here on out, and that's because we have higher pressure building in directly overhead, mixing out the little bit of a stationary tail, a stationary front that was still draped across the peninsula, helping to fuel that setup. Switching over to our water vapor satellite, you can see beneath that high pressure ridge, we have a large upper low that's been stuck over southern Texas that's only going to continue to force extra humidity and moisture into our local area as we go over the next 7 days. And I'm telling you now, we got to get ready for it because it is going to get hot. This temperature outlook from CPC, especially their 2-week outlook, has been flip-flopping back and forth. You can see, if you recall back in January, we were underneath the darkest shades of blue that their key and the legend up there on your screen there had for us. Now we're in some dark shades of red. Over the next 7 days, we're going to be peaking into the mid-80s for some of us in Central Florida, and the precipitation outlook doesn't quite look as promising for us. So it is going to get hot, but we're not under the pattern to where we're going to start to see daytime showers and rainfall that we would typically see in a spring or summer type pattern, despite the fact that it is going to feel like spring outside. Here's a look at your radar right now. This is also going to be a bit of a repetition for us as we go over the next 5 or so days. Maybe a slight chance of a sprinkle or a shower on Monday and especially into Tuesday with the arrival of a cool front. Might be a bit more of a dry front for us because we won't have as much momentum pushing that stuff through Central Florida that day. But because of the heat and the onshore flow from our east, helping to aid with a bit more of that moisture from out of the Atlantic, coupled with that front coming in over the greater United States, we could see a spotty shower or two, especially during the warmest parts of the day. Now, here's a look at your temperatures. Watch what happens here. So this is Wednesday now. If we go to the warmest part of today, we kind of sit around 83, 84 degrees on average. But for the sake of time, I'll fast forward to the main event. If I bring us out to Monday, the hottest part of the day. Look at these high temperatures across our viewing area. Looking at 85 in Orlando, 86 in Sanford, 84 in Kissimmee, and then this is going to be a beach day for sure. You want to head out to Volusia, Flagler, or Brevard if you have the ability to do so. Those easterly winds provided by that high pressure I mentioned moments ago is going to keep the coastline fairly mild, whereas we're going to be, for all intents and purposes, baking in the midst of winter in February here in Central Florida. And then last but not least, I'll show you your pinpoint accurate forecast. Let me go ahead and pull that up for you right now. This is going to be for the next 7 days, and we have brought the temperatures down just a little bit for Monday and Tuesday, but don't be surprised if it feels warmer than the low 80s, especially right before that weak frontal system can come through during the day and early evening hours of your Tuesday.
All right, I'm liking the look of that overall. I understand there might be a little bit of a cool down, maybe just making things a little more comfortable, a little more mild coming up.
Yeah, so probably towards the latter half of next week, getting closer to the Valentine's Day holiday, that weak push of cold air might drop us from the 80s back into the upper 70s for most of us. So, it'll get a little comfier outside as opposed to chilly, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. You hear the word polar vortex, at least for me being a little bit of a northerner, you start to think about those like negative temperatures, but I'm glad I can definitely deal with the 70s.
Oh, same. Honestly, yeah. I'm glad that we're just getting comfortable again as opposed to slowly but surely having to get back to the days of taking 4 showers because it's so hot and muggy outside.
All right. Well, looking forward to that, and thank you so much for your time and expertise, David. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, absolutely, Thomas. Have a great rest of your day.
You as well. All right. Excuse me, I apologize for that. Now we're going to be taking a look at our today's Protecting Our Communities. News 6 anchor Eric Von Aken spoke with a veterinarian who is working regularly to take care of the law enforcement dogs that help to keep us all safe every day.
Police dogs, also known officially as canine units, are incredible animals. They're loyal, they're lovable, but make no mistake, they have one job. There are countless police body camera videos showing the dogs doing their thing, catching bad guys, and those canines will not hesitate for a second to risk or even sacrifice their own lives to save or protect their handlers. So what happens when the dogs get hurt? They come here. And this is who cares for the canines. So this is Dr. Dan Hill, this is Dr. Heidi Hill, this is father and daughter here. You guys are the longtime owners and founders of Underhill Animal Hospital. And currently, guys, you're caring for, this is Canine Wyatt and this is Deputy Keller. This is where Wyatt comes regularly.
Yeah, he's just getting an annual exam right now, so.
How did you become the place for handlers to bring their canines? How'd that happen?
Just over time, 40 years ago when I first started working with police dogs, we had no emergency facilities. We had to be there. We had to go there and get them to live.
Once another department got added, the others just started following. 3 counties and 23 departments, starting with Orlando PD, Osceola County, Seminole County, TSA, Homeland Security.
I went on patrol with these dogs. I saw the pressures. I saw how they got those shoulder injuries. Seeing a dog in action is the best way to learn what they're going through.
And Dr. Dan and Dr. Heidi tell me that this was a first in Florida, a separate law enforcement entrance, so handlers could come here to the hospital any time of day or night and care for their dogs themselves, even cooling them down and washing them. What do you do then when a dog comes in with a serious injury?
We will do our complete physical exam. We monitor and evaluate for any kind of trauma that they have. We can do radiographs immediately, blood work immediately. So this is our in-house laboratory.
Dr. Heidi, you just graduated from veterinary school with a doctorate. So this was 10 years in the making.
Yes.
But you were telling me this was always your plan to take over for your dad.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like it's instilled in my DNA, veterinary medicine. I've been watching it my whole life.
I love to work with them. They're great dogs and great handlers.
They are protecting our community, but you both are protecting our community by taking care of them.
Yeah, it's what we love to do.
In Orlando, Eric Von Aken getting results. News 6.
And we are joined now by the man himself, News 6 anchor Eric Von Aken. Eric, normally when you're joining us on Take 6, you're crawling out from underneath a sink or climbing down from a roof. So I imagine this was a decidedly more fun occasion to be joining us here on Take 6. How was your day with the puppies? Whoop. Oh, I'm sorry.
The corrections. We crawled out of the corrections department right now, so I'm going to go back in there in a second. But
Jeez. Okay.
you know what I'll say is anyone who likes dogs or better yet loves dogs. I mean, this is a great story. This came from. Well, I guess we got a tip, basically an email saying, look, you really need to look at Underhill Animal Hospital because they characterized Underhill as #1 in Central Florida, probably even in the state, when it comes to caring for canines. Now, we were careful. We did some research because, of course, we don't want to offend other vets out there and other animal hospitals out there because they do great things, too, every single day. But from everything we could find, there is no other facility, at least in Central Florida, that has a better relationship with law enforcement and serves more law enforcement dogs than this place does. And I guess, Thomas, the answer is it's simple because if you've been doing this 41 years, almost half a century, you're going to build relationships. And the thing about law enforcement, as we know, and of course I do this Protecting Our Community segment weekly, so I spend a lot of time getting to know our local law enforcement. Relationships are based on trust. So the reason that they are willing to do interviews with us is because they trust that we're going to do what we say we're going to do. I believe we're a very transparent news organization. I believe we're deeply involved and deeply committed. And these law enforcement agencies see us telling these stories, largely positive, but not even so much that. We're just telling the stories of what law enforcement does every single week that gets results that people don't even hear about, right? All these operations and technology, the people that they have. And so this was a story looking at how one of their major resources is cared for. And these folks, as I said in the story, are protecting our community. But the way that they became #1 is through what I was just talking about, that trust and that relationship. And the people at this animal hospital, in particular, Dr. Dan, who's been there forever, and now his daughter, so who it looks like, grew up basically alongside Dr. Dan from a very young age. I mean, she was there. She said she would spend, days at a time in the hospital with her dad, alongside her dad. Certainly going to vet school taught her the things she didn't know, but she felt very comfortable going there full time and in a couple of years taking over. But they trust each other. Dr. Dan saying about riding along, right? Like he said that the canine officers, the handlers, would pick him up in their car at his house and he'd ride along. He'd spend, some of the long days and long nights that these handlers have seeing what these dogs go through. Law enforcement agencies understand that they are all in, so that's why they turn to them over and over again because these dogs are like family to them.
Yeah, exactly. We know that, as you said in your piece, they are a valuable resource, but we also know that these handlers truly love their animals that they work with every day, and that they want to see them get the best care.
Thomas, I have a chainsaw in my ear.
Gotcha.
I didn't quite hear what you said. Say it one more time. I think you talked about trust.
Yeah, we know that the handlers of these dogs, the police officers who handle these dogs, they're a resource, but they are also, as you said, treat them like family. They care for these dogs very much.
Right. So that a lot of these dogs, when they get to retirement age, they end up going to live with their handlers. I mean, they're already the family pet, right? But they are still police dogs, and God forbid anything could happen to them in the line of duty. They understand that risk. It's awful and it's tragic. But after the dogs retire, that risk goes away and the dog gets to come home forever with that family, at least, for the rest of that dog's life. If you've ever talked to a canine handler, they'll tell you that they put their life in those dogs' paws, right? I mean, they count on those dogs in some cases, not just to protect them and their lives, but to save their lives. They are the first line of defense. They will often jump in front of a weapon, a gun. They will jump on a suspect and protect their handler. And the dog's instinct, sure, the dogs are trained to, depending on the type of dog. So there's actually electronic sniffing dogs. Of course, there's drug sniffing dogs. There's gunpowder sniffing dogs. But canines that ride with police officers are trained to, when the officer needs them to go after a suspect. I don't want to say tackle them, but that's what a lot of the dogs do. I mean, the dog is it's another weapon that police officers have, and it protects the officer. It's also very intimidating for if you're a suspect and you've ever seen some of these demonstrations where the police officers are wearing those full suits and the dog jumps on them. But it's and tracking, finding a suspect through the woods. But the dog is that first line of defense, and these officers understand that this is risky every single day for these dogs, as it is for them, of course. And those dogs might not come home with them, but because they do come home so often, it is such a trusting relationship. They count on each other, and that's why when a dog gets hurt, Thomas, there's no words. It's like an officer down. We've covered some of these, and so this hospital, from what we understand, has been there every single time for these officers and the dogs.
All right. Well, Eric, thank you so much for your time. And I know it was a great piece, and we're so glad that those vets are there to care for those canines. I'm going to let you go so we're not competing with the chainsaw anymore. And I know you got a lot of work to do. So we look forward to seeing this again tonight at 5:30, I believe. And then thank you so much for your time, and thanks for talking with us.
It's actually a gas-powered edger, I'm saying, Thomas.
God,
but yes,
sorry.
Thanks for having me.
For the sake of accuracy. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
All right, we are going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll be speaking with News 6 anchor Justin Wormuth, looking at the issues of problem gambling in the state and the organization that helps those people dealing with that addiction. That'll be coming up just in about 2 minutes. Welcome back to Take 6. The time now is 12:49. I'm streaming executive producer Thomas Mates, filling in for Julie Broughton, who has the day off. Right now, we want to bring in News 6 anchor Justin Wormuth. Justin has been working several weeks now on a story about the issues surrounding online gambling, which is now legal in the state, and then some of the problems that appear to be on the rise as a result of that new availability for people here in Florida. Justin, yesterday we looked at the app itself, and we've seen the rise in calls to the organization that helps people dealing with gambling addiction. Today, you're taking a closer look at that organization itself.
Exactly, Thomas. Yeah, I mean, let's just go back to why we started doing this. It's been a year since the Hard Rock app went live in the state of Florida. It's the only legalized sports book operating in the state of Florida. I use it. A lot of my friends use it. A lot of people here at New Six use it. It's totally commonplace, and a lot of people have downloaded it and just wager for fun. But I was curious what those numbers look like as far as people who become addicted or have reached out to this problem gambling center. It's called the Florida Council on Compulsive Gambling. It's Florida's only problem gambling hotline. And what we found was initially that their call volume has doubled in the last year since the app rolled out. So we scheduled an interview with the executive director of that council. And what we found out when we went to their headquarters in downtown Sanford was just absolutely mind-blowing and really staggering. They have just a staff of seven people for a 24/7, 365 operation. They do not close. The hotline does not close. And they don't have state funding right now. Take a look.
When people reach out for help to our helpline for this issue, they're usually at rock bottom.
Jennifer Cruz is the executive director of the Florida Council on Compulsive Gambling. Since taking that role more than 2 decades ago, she has never had more people needing help than right now. Calls have almost doubled from 2023 to 2024, with 2 big differences between the 2 years.
All right, boys, who we betting on?
The rollout of the Hard Rock sports betting app.
Especially with online gambling, you're not seeing the money leave your hand, right? Like, you're not seeing it quantifiably leave. So it's easier for it to get out of hand and, spiral much faster than if you're, physically turning over $1 to buy, a lottery ticket.
And fewer resources to provide help to the growing number of people who need it.
Our state contract was not renewed by the Florida Gaming Control Commission. So while we've had this huge increase in contacts to the helpline and, expansion of gambling in the state of Florida, there have not been, equitable resources allocated for this issue.
For the last 20 years, the Florida Gaming Control Commission has provided state funding to the Florida Council on Compulsive Gambling, but those dollars stopped in July of 2024. In a statement to News 6, the commission told us in part, quote, "At the end of the latest term of its contract with the commission, the council declined the commission's offer to renew the contract."
Currently, we are funded solely by the Seminole tribe of Florida. So without the Seminoles, there would be no resource for help for people with a gambling problem in the state of Florida.
Cruz says this is why the state funding stopped. Binders as tall as some of the center staff here, filled with information the commission wanted monthly from the council. It took more than 100 hours every month to prepare each report, and eventually the council told the commission they just don't have the resources to do it anymore. Meanwhile, the phone keeps ringing.
Do you have the staff for this?
We definitely do not. We don't. We operate, like I said, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, currently with 7 staff members.
Seven. What do you need?
Probably at least 30 at this point.
Those 7 staff members, including Cruz, are responsible for answering more than 170 calls, texts, and live chats through their website every single day. A specialized job that requires months of training.
You never know what's at the other end of that line, and no call or text or chat is ever really the same. So you have to have somebody that's, got the experience and the knowledge and understands this issue, understands the addiction, and, is compassionate and is also able to provide appropriate resources.
What's worse, their downtown Sanford headquarters suffered significant damage from Hurricane Ian, forcing most of the 7 employees to work remotely.
We're talking Hurricane Ian.
Yep.
2022.
2022. So the damages originally started upstairs, and it took so long with insurance. As you know, there was a lot of insurance claims then, that by the time they came out and started doing their assessments, mold had developed.
Construction on the building is mostly done, but the work to reorganize the roughly 630,000 helpline items continues to take up a lot of their time they just don't have.
We're taking them now out of the Surfro boxes, and we're having to recount everything, and we're putting them in plastic containers, which is it's a very time-consuming task when you're counting pens and brochures, and yeah,
How has this impacted what you are truly in the business of?
hugely, because we need access to stuff.
All of this on top of more callers than ever and their smallest staff yet.
I cannot get over the fact that you had more staff before sports betting became legalized. Do you ever think about that? And
Yeah,
it's, to me, I'm baffled.
yeah, it definitely should be the other way around.
You think?
Unfortunately, circumstances haven't allowed for that.
What's also troubling about this, Thomas, is we have made several calls to lawmakers in the state of Florida, bringing this issue to them and asking what can be done to help the only hotline operating in the state of Florida as these calls continue to come in. And it doesn't seem like it's on anyone's radar. And I get they have busy jobs, and there's a lot that's been happening over the course of the new year with the new Trump administration coming in and Governor DeSantis organizing special sessions and what have you. I have put in requests, not just lawmakers who aren't in this space, lawmakers who have had legislation in the past that focuses on gambling, and one of them denied a request, another one just kind of ghosted us a little bit. And so that's what's frustrating to me, is that how is this not on their radar and trying to get ahead of this and be proactive instead of reactive? Because so many times that's what government gets blamed for, is being reactive, not proactive, and trying to get ahead of something. You have the only operating system in the state, as calls continue to come in, operating with no budget from the state and a shoestring staff. I'm baffled by that.
Yeah, my first question is, I know when you and your producer, Tom Vielkind, were first looking into this story, were you aware that there was only this one organization and the state that they were in prior to pursuing this?
No, I did not. I've seen the ads for 888 Admit It, because that airs you see it on the Hard Rock app, and then with their commercials with Post Malone there, they have it really small at the end. They'll say like gambling problem, 888 Admit It. So when we started looking into this and we reached out to them, we didn't know, first off, it was even in downtown Sanford. Had no idea that the hotline was located there, A. B, all we kind of had on the initial jump was, okay, we kind of asked for numbers. What have they been seeing? Has the call volume been higher? The answer to that was obviously clear. It's doubled since the app went live. But she said, I have much more to tell you, and something that no one's really talking about. So when we had that, when we were interviewing them, it shocked us. I mean, it just kept one thing after the next. It's like, oh, we only have a staff of 7. Well, what do you need? 30 minimum. I go, well, why? How come we haven't hired anyone else? She said, well, we would, but we don't have any state funding from the Florida Gaming Control Commission. That dried up in July. And then on top of it all, they have no headquarters because they haven't been able to operate in there since 2022 when Hurricane Ian came in. It's like one after the next. Meanwhile, again, and as you saw in the piece, the phones continue to ring.
Yeah, and saying that they have 7 and they need at least 30, I have to imagine at that call volume, it was about 107 a day, 60,000 in a year. 30 would still be probably pushing the limits on that.
Yeah, I mean, she said that's hypothetical because she just doesn't know. That was a purely just 30 would be a good start. I think they probably need more. And again, it goes back to like this, and I want to be, I guess this wasn't included, and I probably should have said this in the beginning. This call center has been operating since 1988. It's been in service since that time. For a large pocket of how they've been, for the last 37 years, they've been focused on, calls from people at the, who get addicted to Highlight or the dog track or horse racing in the state of Florida. Obviously, there are some, as they call them, racinos. There are 8 in the state of Florida, and they're all in Broward and Miami-Dade counties that operate slots, and then poker rooms, internet casinos. The lottery was a big portion of their call volume. The state has never had a casino in your pocket. And that's what this Hard Rock app is. It's a casino in your pocket. People can get addicted without the self-exclusion part of this as well, which is what you see with a lot of casinos, is if somebody has a problem, they tell the casino, hey, I want to self-exclude. And then if they try to go back to that casino, they are trespassed. So there's some teeth in there to prevent them from going and gambling and continue if they have a problem. With this app, they do have that, but it's so easy to go around
Yeah.
that. There's no trespassing thing. You can just, if you want to delete the app, you can just re-download it. And so they've never had something of this nature. And again, it's only been in service for a year. And so I would expect, and she expects, call volume to continue to tick up throughout 2025.
Wow. Well, I know that you'll be staying on top of this and following the story, and you're going to be airing tonight in our 4 o'clock hour and our 6 o'clock hour, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. We'll see you then.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure we'll have much more then. And of course, head to clickorlando.com and you can read all of Justin's story there as well. Justin, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You got it.
Okay, and with that, we are going to say goodbye here on Take 6 today. Thank you so much for your time. Again, join us for News 6 at 4. There we'll be having Justin's story as well as all of your day's headlines and weather. That'll be coming up then. And thank you so much for your time and have a pleasant day.